When you're ready to begin throwing, you need a few tools at your wheel. You will need your square bat. You will need about a pound of clay, the blue mud tool sponge that is in your school toolkit, a red rib tool, and the fine wood handle needle tool. You also need a bowl of water to keep your hands wet. So when I'm placing the bat onto the wheel head, you will see that there are both inside and outside holes. These are the holes on the outside edge. These are the inner holes. You're going to be using the holes that are further to the outside. What I recommend doing is take your 2 pointer fingers, place them over the holes. Then you want the bat pins, the wheel head pins, to touch the tops of your pointer fingers, and you lower the bat then onto the wheel head. The bat should not wiggle. It should be secure on the wheel head. So now you're ready to throw. You want to begin with moistening your sponge. You'll notice that the sponge that I now throw with is an actual sea sponge. It's very soft and natural. A former student gave this sea sponge to me and I have used it ever since. I absolutely love it. So if you have a natural sea sponge at home that is very soft, that can also be a very nice tool to throw with. So as I'm spinning the wheel, I want to add a little bit of moisture to the bat surface. Do not saturate the surface. You should not have puddles of clay there. It's just a little bit of moisture so that the clay sticks. You then take your ball of clay and you slam it towards the middle of the bat. Now, there are 2 main hand positions when centering. One is a fist on top of your hand. I take my left hand and cup it around the outside, and the right hand goes on top, grabbing hold of my thumb. Your hands should work together as one tool the entire time you're throwing. So the first position you want to use is pushing the clay down, and this outside hand stabilizes the outside of the ball of clay. Notice where my elbows are. My elbows stay rested on the legs. That is going to help stabilize. The next hand position that you're going to use we refer to as coning up. So when you cup your hands around the outside and you slowly squeeze in, moving your hands up, coning the clay up. Notice again where my hands are. They're rested on my legs and actually a little bit on the inside edge of my leg. That will help bring some stability to your arms. So I'm coning up, and now I'm going to push down, fist on top of my hand. So these are the 2 centering positions you're going to use. And you want to make sure that you are properly centering the clay so that in the end you have a symmetrical pot, or at least a relatively symmetrical pot. So a common question that I get is, how can I tell if I'm centered? Well, you can tell visually if the clay is not moving around a lot, you're likely centered. But another technique that I use is I glide my finger along the outside edge. If my finger isn't bumping up and down, then I'm centered. So you can tell that this clay is centered. So I have achieved the first step of throwing, which for a lot of people when they're starting is the hardest step. So after you are centered, you are then ready to begin to open the clay. To open the clay, you have your hands wet. Cup your hands around the outside and slowly push your thumb down through the clay. You want to stop at about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. So you want about that much thickness at the bottom of your pot. Do not push your thumbs the whole way down to the bat or you'll have a hole in your pot. So from the top, this is what it looks like right now. So now I am ready to widen that opening. So I'm establishing the base. Dip your hands in water, cup your hands around the outside. Your right thumb is inside and your left thumb piggybacks on top. So the hand position looks like this. I have my thumb inside and I am dragging it across the bottom. This will establish the base of your form. If you notice inside, it is nice and flat. That's what we're going for when we're starting our throwing skills. I'm now ready to pull up walls. The pulling up wall position means that you're going to grasp your sponge and only have the tip of your sponge exposed to the clay. The rest of your sponge is tucked back in your hand. So when you're using the blue sponge, you are using the very tip. And so you should only have this much of a surface area on the mud sponge against the clay. I'm going to begin my pull at the thickest part. So I'm holding my sponge, my thumbs are touching, and my inside fingers are curved and stiff. So I'm pushing in at the same time that I'm pushing out. So I've started at the thickest area of the form. I'm now ready to move down because the thick area has changed and I'm now the thickest right down here. So I'm going to press and then I'm going to slowly move my fingers up to the rim. When I get to the rim, I'm going to slowly move my hands away. Do not move your hands away too quickly. If you move your hands away too quickly, you'll knock your form off center. So now my thickest area is right down here. So I'm going to start my pull at the thickest area. Move up to the rim and slowly take my hands away. My thickest area is down against the bat, so I'm going to push in against the bat. My inside fingers are slightly above when I do this. Pulling up to the rim, slowly take my hands away. Still thick down at the base. One of our goals is always nice, thin, even walls. So you can see that my rim is a little uneven. Now this is a more advanced skill, so in the beginning I will help you remove the rings of clay from your form. But you're going to take a clean needle tool, make sure it is wet. The needle tool goes on the outside and the needle tool should be pointing directly away from you. Thumbs touch, pointer finger inside, and the needle tool slowly goes through the wall and you lift up and you've removed a ring of clay. So I'm going to pull up a little bit more. And now I have a very basic cylindrical form. For your first pot, I am perfectly happy if you throw a cylinder or a bowl. So what you want to make sure you're focusing on are the different steps of throwing, which include centering, opening the clay, establishing the base, and pulling up the walls. You do want, in the end, walls that are thin and even. If your bottom wall is too thick, then you will end up with a very heavy functional form, and we do not want that.